Hi guys, this is Gary Pope from Late to the Table. This is your weekly reading Reddit, and today is April 14th. So let's start this off. We're going to start this off with a subreddit, what should I get, and other quick questions, which has become the new mega thread on Reddit. And let's start the most obvious post from non-hip hipster. So what's the advantage of putting all these posts together? Again, these questions are going to get lost in the shuffle and have much less responses. The user Zamboni actually came up with a great response to this answer. It basically says, based on a quick perusal over a couple of pages of comments, it seems like just about everyone's post is getting answered, and with about the same amount of responses as your average what should I get. Plus there's an option to browse other people's what should I gets at a glance. I understand your concerns, but the system was implemented to solve those concerns and it seems to be working. And I had to honestly 100% agree. I actually went down and started browsing through the entire section, and just about every single comment was a what should I get comment, and every single one of them just about had a response as well. I was actually really surprised, to be honest. But I will be honest, my only problem with this new segment is that it turned the old quick simple first time new users question spot into a what should I get spot. I was literally browsing through pages of comments almost, and I think I found only like a couple, I think 4 at the most at the time of when I was looking of comments, and this was over a course of like 2 days. Okay, the next question is from Super Strong Hero. Is it possible to play One Night Ultimate Werewolf / Daybreak and Vampires with the Ultimate Werewolf cards? And the answer is actually a pretty easy yes. You can actually use the characters from the Ultimate Werewolf and use them for One Night Ultimate Werewolf. The thing is, you have to make sure that the characters match between games, and also you might have to make some markings or switch characters and say, hey everyone, this character represents this character instead. But of course, I will always recommend to buy the original game. The original game One Night Ultimate Werewolf is actually a perfect rendition of what you should be using, and not only that, the card stock is a lot better since they're tiles rather than cards. So they last longer and they make less noise when moving them, and they're easier to pick up on the table because there is a lot of movement between cards on the table. Next question is by BlueJ14. How do you get Flair? And just to describe it real quick, Flair is the thing that matches up with your username in the Reddit. So for example, if you look at my Flair below, it will say One Night Ultimate Werewolf, and it says horrible at telling the truth. And Dudu Addict came up with the best answer for this one. He says, on the right sidebar you should see the number of subscribers. Below that there's a checkbox, show my Flair on this subreddit. It looks like a little space there. You could go ahead and enter that information, and the edit link below that will let you choose your Flair, which allows you to pick which game you're picking. And as an aside, that's generally how it works on all subreddits, which is true. Okay, so the next question is actually outside of the what should I get and a little quick questions. This one is from Rachem. It's what do you use BoardgameGeek for? I use BoardgameGeek for several things. First thing is of course to get information on a game. It has by far the best database for all board games. Second is I use it to get the API information for when I do some coding. It's a little bit of my background. And the third thing I use it for is similar to Reddit. I just use it for a discussion board to discuss various different things, whether if I'm making a post or if I'm looking at someone else's post. It's just another way to discuss games, except I probably use Reddit a lot more than BoardgameGeek for that matter. And it was also an Explain Like I'm 5 question from Impossible Beard ROK. And it says, why is crowdfunding shipping so expensive for some projects but free for others? And why is it always more expensive than Amazon? And I'll answer this one pretty quickly. First off, comparing to Amazon with a small distributor, a board game distributor for that matter, Amazon is such a big company. Let's say for example they're making 30 cents off of a sale. Because they're making millions of sales every single day, those 30 cents add up regardless, so they could take a hit for shipping. And when comparing to a board game distributor, they're making 1,000 to a couple thousand games at a time possibly. So if they're making only 30 cents off of every single copy, there's no reason for them to be in the business. And besides just comparing them to Amazon, there's also just how distribution works in general. Let's say for example, if a distributor is located on a random island off the coast of South Africa or something like that. In this example, even if you was located in the USA, it would probably cost a lot of money for shipping, because the game would have to go from wherever it's being made to the distributor in that island off of the south coast of Africa, and then to you. So that's easily going to rack up a pretty high shipping cost. And when all is said and done, someone's going to pay for the cost of that. If you see a Kickstarter that says free shipping, guess what? They're probably incorporating the price of shipping in the cost of the game, or they're possibly taking a hit, or they could just be charging you the shipping costs as it shows in the Kickstarter. Could go either way. Yeah, but hopefully that helped you understand the whole how distribution works with board games and Kickstarters. So the guys from Shut Up and Sit Down started a Ask Me Anything thread this week, and it actually ended up becoming probably one of the more popular Ask Me Anythings that this subreddit has had. I'm obviously not going to cover all of it because there was a ton of questions over a span of like, I think they were doing it for like 5 hours or something like that. I had to go double check, probably way off. But anyways, I would suggest you guys go check it out, but I'll highlight some questions. The user Burnsy asked a couple questions, but I'm just going to highlight the first one. He said, firstly, have you any tips for getting into content creation? I used to do a blog talking about little known at the time indie games and I enjoyed it, but it was quite hard to reach people and I wasn't sure if my content was what people were interested in or not. I also wouldn't mind trying video content, but that would be a much bigger pain, I'm sure. Ha ha ha. And yeah, you're not lying. Doing this video stuff is a pain. I love it though. Now user Jam Sponge, he's Matt. He answered, thank you so much for watching. Okay, so please stop making content. I wish I could shout this from a rooftop like a bad signal from my mouth. The whole word denotes a really sad sense of emptiness, of producing things for consumption, making things that people want, making things to be seen, read, heard, and then put aside forever. Just make stuff. Make things you want to make when you have time because it's fun, and by doing that you'll eventually get good at it, and when you get good, who knows what will happen or how your work will evolve. So please do keep making stuff. Just forget about creating content. And I have no real follow-up for that. That was a perfect answer. And the next question is actually a personal favorite of mine, asked by Psychic Yakuza. Will the mighty nation of Japan ever rise again and play some more mega games together? Just as a little backstory, Shut Up and Sit Down played a mega game a few years ago called Watch the Skies. A mega game is essentially a game in which you can have at least 20 players, but it usually goes up to about 60 plus players, in which players are representing different nations and they're also representing an alien nation as well. The game essentially starts out with the aliens invading Earth, and players just need to figure out why they're on Earth and also figure out their own little objectives as well. It's a really great game because no one knows what the objective is, so they might have to peacefully allow these aliens to invade Earth, or they might have to try fighting them off. The objective changes every single time and they're drastically different every single time as well. And the game is, I've played the game twice already and it's different every single time. So if you're interested in it, I would highly recommend checking it out. It's just Mega Game Society online. And here's Matt's answer. Honestly, I'd love to play more Mega Games, but the dynamic is so different when you're not playing as a stranger. It's thrilling to see Mega Games now being such a big thing for so many, but being at ground zero of that explosion means we can't really enjoy them like most people would. Those things are already uniquely insane and exhausting. When people playing start creating ways for you to interact with them during the game, it gets a bit too much. And to be honest, I don't blame him for that answer. It kind of sucks when you're trying to play a game in which involves interacting with everyone, but people are trying to find ways to interact with you that don't progress the game. But I will say this though, Matt and fellow Shut Up and Sit Down guys, I actually am really good friends with the guys that run the Mega Games over here in the northeast part of the USA. Most of their events are usually centered around New York City and also at PAX East once a year usually. And what was so cool with these guys, they actually run a Twitch stream and they actually literally created an entire country that had completely different mechanics from everyone else for my Twitch stream to actually work with everyone else. So it wouldn't shock me if you guys really wanted to play another game, and if you really wanted to plan it out, they could probably figure out a way for you guys to be able to participate in a mega game and still make it work with everyone trying to interact with you guys. You never know. But let's be real, this is my way of trying to interact with you guys. Here's my number. Please call me. I'm not desperate or anything. Okay, so Senator Wem16 asks, what games do you always want to play but no one else wants to? Now personally for me, this game is definitely Mangaka. If you don't know what Mangaka is, long story short, it's a game in which you're drawing a comic strip. It usually starts out with 2 panels, and then by the end of the game you're drawing 4 panels, and then 6 panels, and then 8 panels, and all of your comic strips are basically revolving around the same topic. It's very similar to how Fun Employed you get cards to basically act as that kind of person during this round, but for Mangaka you're acting as this theme for the entire game. In between rounds there are different rules that change up how you're drawing your comic strip, and it's a hilarious game. Problem is that just people hate drawing, I guess, more people than I thought, so Everyone's horrible people. In particular, I'm looking at you, Chris. There's at least 12 Chris's I just insulted from my playing group. And the next post is from Zamboni. Vetting expensive games, how not to invest in vain. Long story short, they're basically not having a great time with how expensive games are getting nowadays. Now, I was actually going to ignore this post, but I've actually seen several similar posts in the past week about this. I actually already answered this one online, so I'll just basically read off what I said. Alright, so I said I'll probably cover this in the next one because this has literally been at least the third time I've seen / addressed this exact same question in the past week. Sentapitastic gave this the best answer I've seen and I agree with. Here's the post from Sentapitastic. And to sum up what he said, he basically said Squad Leader and The Last 100 Yards are two games that are very similar in terms of the things that it comes with. But at the time, the Last 100 Yards was selling for $10 more than Squad Leader. Now, the difference between the two prices was because Squad Leader was sold almost 100,000 copies, while The Last 100 Yards only sold, I think it was roughly about 1,000 copies. So thanks for the answer, Sentapitastic, if that's your name. But also, just to add to it, what people are doing that's a real big problem when they're comparing the prices of games is you see people complain about $100 games. They're saying, oh, why is Rising Sun $100 when Rising Sun has a ton of miniatures, which is why it's $100. So the problem is that they're comparing games like Monopoly to Rising Sun instead of comparing games like Monopoly to classics of today like Ticket to Ride and Pandemic. If you look at a game like Monopoly is around $20, Pandemic is around $25, and Ticket to Ride is around $30. Now, if you was to combine how many copies of Pandemic and Ticket to Ride have been sold over the course of their lifetimes, they don't even come close to the distribution of Monopoly. So naturally, Monopoly can manufacture for a lot cheaper and sell the game for a lot cheaper than both those games. So this next one is from Viscid Muslim, and it basically says, what do you say to a new timer when they say things like, I have no idea what I'm doing, or I have no idea what to do, even after you're sure they understand the rules? Now, this is a great question because I want to say just about anyone teaching rules to people have ran into this problem at least once eventually. Now, specifically dealing with new timers, I've come up with basically two ways to go about this. Now, the first one is usually the most common one out of these. The person might just not like the game, so I'll make note of the game, I'll make note of the person playing, I'll make note of the complaints, and I'll even try asking them if there's some reason why they probably don't like the game if they're showing signs of that. After taking those notes, I'll then consider it and then adjust my pick for the next game for them. And people teaching games run into this problem all the time. They usually want to almost force a game onto other people and say, hey, you'll like this game, and then not realize that people actually don't like the game. Not only is your job to be the person who gets people to play the games, gets people to understand how to play the game, but you also got to be the person who just knows when to call it quits and move on to the next game. And sometimes moving on to the next game takes baby steps. You can't always just hop into Twilight Imperium and just soon people will start playing a game and start loving the hobby from there. Now, here's a second instance. If I ran into this person doing the same exact thing several times with very simple games and they just seem to be doing this all the time, at that point you just gotta assume that they're sandbagging the game and they just will never get into games. So you just gotta call it quits and move on and just not include them when you're playing games in the future. Now, I'm not saying kick them out of your friend group or anything like that, but I mean, just if you're having a game night, simply avoid inviting them. Just bear in mind that get a consensus of the rest of the group as well, and just make sure that they're not kind of summing up everyone's feelings in the group and everyone actually doesn't like playing games, because in that situation then that means you're the problem. And once again, this was another Reading Reddit. This was recorded on Friday, April 14th, probably around the time when you guys are waking up for work. So like always, be sure to comment below if you also think you can answer any of these questions better than myself. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions, concerns, or anything like that, be sure to hit me up on YouTube as well. So once again, this is Gary Pope from Late to the Table. I'll catch you guys next week. Peace. See ya.